She said no.
Promote to parent.
She said no to it.
Steve, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do you think we're set or,
We're ready? We're ready.
okay? Okay, I call to order the October 16, 2023 meeting of the Municipal Authority. We're just back from we just conducted an executive session of the board to discuss litigation matters. I will do a roll call. Steve Mackel,
Here.
Louis Rosenthal,
Here.
Paul Montefiore,
Here.
Tom Greco,
Yeah.
and Maria Kane is here. Please stand for, oh, I guess we should do a moment of silence in honor of the people who lost their lives in Israel just recently. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
The
the flag
flag,
of the United
of the
States
States of America,
and to
the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
nation,
indivisible,
visible.
justice for all. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? You've all had a chance to look at that.
move.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Any questions or comments?
There are some technical things that
Yeah.
we'll do it then.
Yeah, I don't think we need to amend the agenda based on the
No.
technical changes we
Yes,
discussed.
comment.
No. Okay. All right, all right, motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And you've all had a chance to look at the minutes that have been that are in your packet from September 18, 2023. May I have a motion to approve the minutes? I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Any changes to the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, treasurer's report. And Steve, will you be giving that or?
So in your packet, you had the normal treasurer's report. I would just kind of make note a couple things for you, only because I know the questions come up related to where some funding comes, particularly as we get a little later in the meeting. If you look at the the September 23 monthly treasurer's report, specifically looking at the balances, I would call your attention to the capital fund 75 balance of $2,723,000. When we talk about reserves, I just wanted you to be aware that's actually where we'll be taking from to pay. There'll be two things tonight, two different payments, two different payees tonight that we'll be talking about reserves. But also when we do the bond payment coming up next month, that will also be coming from reserves. So,
Okay.
so there's money there to do that. I just want everybody to be comfortable, but it will be drawing down those funds. Because we mailed out the letters related to the old Masters pump station and those that can start hooking up, I anticipate those dollars are going to increase again and we'll have additional dollars there. Other than that, I'll answer any questions that you have. But as a whole, we're doing fine with our revenues versus our expenses.
Okay, any questions from the board on the treasurer's report? Okay.
That bond reconciliation that we've gotten, now that we
Yeah.
will have depleted it, Are you gonna do just one final sort of?
We'll get you
Close out.
another one. There was a couple moving targets and I wanted to make sure we had it right before we,
After tonight, especially.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great, thanks.
We'll get you an update. I think I looked at it last, there'll be probably somewhere around $8,000 or $10,000 left between interest and things like that. Yvonne and I've talked, our preference would be to pay some smaller bills with that we know are still outstanding. And we'll use that funding up that way. Have talked to the funding agents, the trustee for those dollars. And the trustee has told me that when we get to the end, we'll actually go ahead and put the money to them. And then they'll write a check for whatever's left to that, send it back to us. We'll make up the difference on that payment and mail it out to whoever the vendor is.
And so we won't be, for payment requisitions, we won't be using that sort of payment form out of the indenture.
We're going to continue to use a similar format for this project. I think it's the best way to kind of pay out the rest of the project. It's just that we're going to be making note that it's coming from reserve funds instead of from bond.
Got it,
funds.
perfect. Thanks.
So we'll have engineers signing off on all of that.
Yeah, we'll still, I think it's in your best interest, this project, to keep having the engineer sign off on the things that were related to the project. And if there's anything legal, Mike would sign off on those. And so we would do it that way.
Great. Okay. And with that, Dave Porter from McCumbee Engineers for the engineers report.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So we have some good news tonight. We finally have our Old Masters pump station testing completed and letters have been sent out, at least have begun being sent out last Friday for requirements for connections. So that's a positive thing. There were a couple of minor ancillary things that need to be corrected. One being a minor gas leak between the propane tanks and the engine at the pump station house. Dixieland Energy, who did the install, is coming back out on the 24th to do some minor excavation in that area to determine where the location of the leak is and to get it corrected. The station currently is left in the off mode, so none of the pumps will turn on. The sewage grinder is turned off at this point. During testing of the engine driven emergency pump, we basically drew the wet well all the way down to the low water warning volume. We did do some adjustments to the on-off elevations because of the nature of the amount of connections that will come on. So we basically set the on-off at a lower differential vertically than it would be on a normal basis, because the sewage would be sitting there for a longer period of time initially. And we'll make those adjustments as we go and get connections brought on. With regard to the NPDES permits on the project, the notice of termination for both of the projects will be, paperwork will be ready this Wednesday. We have some documents that obviously the authority representatives will have to sign. I believe Steve Nease has signatory authority. He can do that for filing of that paperwork. It's basically terminating the erosion and sediment control and the post-construction stormwater components of the overall project. So most of the project has been completed and stabilized for a few years now. We're really just focused on that driveway and the pump station at Old Masters for the remaining stabilization, which once that NOT paperwork is filed, we'll schedule a final walkthrough with the Conservation District. And once everything is okay as far as stabilization, AP Construction will come back, remove all the E&S controls, and then the remaining balance of what we agreed to pay will be filed as an application, and probably November, December, that will be completed. We did talk about some outstanding payments for tree removal. That's kind of being taken in connection with the Rafferty discussion. So until that gets worked out, there's still an outstanding invoice from Brandywine Tree and Shrub that's been on kind of our action item. This is a placeholder for the time being. Over the last month, I did have the opportunity to discuss and sit down and meet with Julio Isidoro from J.O. and Bradley with regard to their request for payment for items such as stone for delay damages and things of that nature on both the Ashford and Camelot projects. Based on the information that he shared with me, basically stone tickets, overall quantity of stone, comparing that with what was already paid out, and mapping and the duration of the delays with regard to easements and having to shift crews around. There are 2 agenda items for action for payment for the authority's consideration tonight, totaling in the amount of about $291,000. That concludes updates on the sanitary sewer project. If the authority has any questions, be happy to take those at this time. If not, I'll move on to a couple of other minor updates.
I just, want to put on the record that I know this board in this township has been diligently pursuing finalization of this 527 plan and appreciate everybody's efforts. I just speak for everybody here and township, residents who, so we appreciate all of your work, Dave and the engineering team, but also the team at the township as well. So hopefully we're all going to be hooked up, or those who have the ability to hook up or are required to hook up. Hopefully that'll all be done within a reasonable period of time. I'll move on.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the kind words, Maria.
Thank you.
Just a couple of updates. Over the past month, our office has been kind of hit with the COVID bug. So that kind of delayed some of my other action items with regard to the Dunwoody and Westchester Pike sanitary sewer main crossing. So that's still on my radar to have resolved, along with the French Road cost estimating. So hopefully within the next month, I'll have that in front of the authority for consideration. We did have the opportunity to go out to Ellis Preserve Pump Station. Jeremiah from our office, who's one of our lead inspectors, met with a contractor out there to look at making some adjustments to the plumb on the drain out there for lifting the pumps out of the wet well. What is being considered is doing some minor excavation around the footer, between the footer for the crane and the wet well, and then kind of plumbing it up and then backfilling with concrete in between the wet well to stabilize it. So we're working with the contractor to get some cost estimates. We'll have to get a couple of other quotes for that. So we want to nail down the scope and get everybody the same scope so we can get three prices for the authority to consider. Lastly, Stony Knoll, which was a 17 lot subdivision up off of Wayland Road. That has been conditionally approved by the Board of Supervisors because they went from 13 lots to 27 lots to 18. Now they're down to 17 lots. They have to amend their plant sewage facilities planning module. In connection with that, the capacity certification had to be amended. I reviewed the document. We're going from 18 to 17 lots. I've issued that capacity certification letter. They're also going to need Steve Nease to sign off on the planning module on behalf of the authority and the township. I just wanted to bring that to the authority's attention, and I don't know that the authority needs to take any action on that. It just they're kind of antsy to get their sewage facilities planning submitted. So with that, that concludes my engineer's report for this evening.
Do we have a process in place now, with, speaking of Stony Knoll, as, to make sure that, nobody is hooking up to a system that's not operational, and that there's kind of some procedures that are in place?
There's really procedures in place already because they're required to get permits
Right, so is there a way to, ensure that they're getting a permit, and something else is being held back from the township?
Yeah, we
in order to
were,
do that?
what we've done is I've asked our folks at the township, so putting on my township manager hat for just a minute, but we've asked the folks at the township to actually make sure that they have a sign off from the municipal authority before issuing any final UNO or CO on a home, if there's any sewer that's involved in it. So that's now, we have to actually have it, and it's not even, they're having to get an actual signature or at least an email stating, yes, this is good to go, not even a phone conversation. So just to make sure there's clarity, to make sure that everybody does everything they're supposed to.
Appreciate that. Okay. Right, and putting on your other hat now,
Yes.
Steve, do you want to manager's report?
Yeah, so I'll apologize. I just realized we actually we attached the invoice from KBX, not the actual report from KBX. I will make sure you get the KBX report. I think it may have been sent to you via email, at least it was supposed to be. If you didn't receive it, well, I'll make sure they get out tomorrow. But the big thing that I would bring from their report that I would just want to make sure you're aware of, in September, they started, and I think they pretty much got through most of the wet well cleaning that they do at each pump station. And I think they do that twice a year. And so at a couple of the stations, and some of the stations just get it once a year. So they have started that. They've continued to give us a list of some issues that are outstanding. Probably the biggest things that we need to continue to follow up on are the bioxide at each one of those pump stations. And there's an exhaust fan issue, as well as so a few other things at each one. So I will be working, make sure Dave has this list, and we'll be making sure we keep moving forward and make sure you have the list as well.
Okay. All right, let's move on. 9.1, consider approving the bills on check register A dated October 16, 2023, totaling $220,013.11. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
You, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you. I think we got Tom on that one, Steve. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Consider approving bills on check register B dated October 16, 2023, totaling $413,268.16. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on, consider approving the following payments from the bond associated with 537 Public Sewer Project build out, $17,508.05 to the Wright Family Partnership for damage to sewer pipe and grinder pump previously approved. $15,236.70 to Four Brothers Electrical Company Incorporated for final payment for electrical work. $7,623.75 to Herbert McCumbee Engineers for Part 2 permit work associated with the Camelot service area. $3,707.50 to Herbert McCumbee Engineers for Part 2 permit work associated with the Ashford service area. May I have a motion? Thank you, Louis.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Consider approving the following payments from the reserves associated with the 537 Public Sewer Project build out. Or let's just do this separately. Can I have a motion to approve payment to Ford Brothers in the amount of $90,662.33 for Old Masters Pump Station? And that is from the reserves. Payment would come from the reserves associated with 537 Public Sewer Project build out.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments?
If I could, if you don't mind, if I just clarify something.
Sure.
This was on your agenda in September, and
Okay,
you approved it for those dollars to be paid from the bond funds. And so when we went back, we determined there was actually not enough money in the bond funds to pay that 90,000. And so I just want to be clear, you've actually already approved the payment to Ford Brothers. It's just where it's coming from. And because it's coming from reserves, I wanted you to be aware that that's where it's coming from and that's what you're acting on tonight.
Okay. So the $90,662.33 coming from the reserves. Okay. All right, we already have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Paul already said.
Paul already seconded. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next one we'll take separately. May I have a motion to approve payment from the reserves to JOA Bradley Construction Company in the amount of $231,641.32 for the Ashford service area.
So moved.
The same condition on both of these. Maybe you want to do it.
Maybe do them together. That's a good idea. Thank you very much.
Motion withdrawn.
Thank you, Louis. Okay, and I just want to make a clarification too on this, that the numbers associated with Camelot service area should be actually the number that is on the agenda as associated with Ashford. So just flipping the two numbers, and I will do that in the actual motion. So may I have a motion to pay from the reserves the following amounts, $231,641.32 for the Ashford service area and $60,011.61 for the Camelot service area. Payment to JOA Bradley Construction Company. And both payments are to be made subject to and contingent upon the signing of a mutually acceptable release. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Consider approving the total amount of $1,468.13 in the form of an escrow release payment to Len the plumber for completed work at the following addresses and the following amounts: 114 Hunt Club Lane, $520.60. 3101 Green Valley Road in the amount of $625. 124 Brook Hill Road in the amount of $322.50. May I have a motion?
It doesn't add up.
The total amounts don't add.
There's
And
a
I'm wondering
digit.
if, see the 60, I wonder if that was 6 cents
63 cents.
or 63 cents.
Is that correct, Steve?
Steve, does that look right to you? The Hunt Club,
I think that's right. It looks like the 3 got left off.
okay, the 3 cents got left off.
With that 3 cents, I'll make a motion to make those payments to Len the plumber.
Okay, do I hear a second? Thank you. I think Paul made the second first. Any questions or comments other than the changing it to 3 cents, add 3 cents to Hunt Club Lane? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, next, consider approving a refund in the amount of $2,334.57 to Brian McCullen at 21 Bishop Hollow Road. The customer requested a refund of this overpayment in that amount. As I guess the resident has been making payments since 2021 for an incorrect amount, resulting in the overpayment. May I have a motion before we ask any questions about it?
Move.
All right, Louis has made the motion. Steve, yes, anybody willing to make a second on that one? I'll second it. Steve, what's going on with this? Did we get some phone calls, communications, or are you not sure? Or-
Here's what I will tell you. I went back through the record. Yvonne and I actually went through it last week a couple different times. The person was actually claiming they made their tax payment online
Okay.
However, the facts are they actually paid the wrong amount every quarter all the way back to 2021. And our tax payments are usually annually, not quarterly. So it was very confusing. I'm not sure what they were actually paying. I don't know if they thought they were paying their water bill. I don't know if they thought they were paying something else. It's clear that they paid the wrong amount. This is the amount that their account is overpaid. If it had been a smaller amount and their bill had been closer to that amount, I would have told them, just don't pay us for a quarter or two, but this would take them, I think, 2 years or 3 years to get their money back. And so it just seemed to make sense to go ahead and, I don't know what, I know what they said they were doing. It doesn't make sense to me, but the facts are, this is the amount that the account is over. We have verified that.
And do you believe that any confusion that they may have had as far as who they were paying has been resolved so that? I mean, I'm not saying I'm dissuading people from overpaying, but you know.
Yeah, let
trying
me
to
just
cut
say
down on your
this.
work, Steve.
Do I think this solves the problem? Only solves the problem if the person totally understands what they're doing. But what I will suggest is I'm going to ask our team to kind of follow this person's payments over the next several quarters. And if he or she is overpaying, I'm going to suggest that we reach out to them and say, you're continuing to do this. We're not sure why. And it probably will happen again, potentially this time, only because they're going to receive a bill that shows that they're $2,334 overpaid.
Yeah,
And for whatever reason, they keep paying an amount adding to that, and their amount has gotten greater every quarter. So we're going to let them know that we're doing this, and we'll get them the check. But it could be
it might
that
take another quarter.
it may take another
straighten
quarter
out.
to get it squared away because we're in the process of getting ready to do bills. And so I don't know that everything will clear the right way as they get their bill and everything.
Well, thank you for that explanation.
Do we,
think-
do you, just in terms of process, do we flag overpayments? for
Not
follow-up?
typically, because as I shared with Yvonne, I've actually counseled some people on overpayments because they have cycles and they're unable to budget per cycle. And so I encourage them to go ahead and, like, if they want a flat amount, just to go ahead and pay that flat amount, but that's not what this person was doing. So some people pay, every quarter. If they typically owe $300, but they have a jump in the summer, and if they paid $400, that would be what their bill would be for each quarter. I suggest that they go ahead and do it. That way they're level and they budget and they're happy. And so I've kind of counseled some folks on that. But in this case, I don't know what the issue is. So to say that we always overlook it, or check it, I don't always check it because of things like that.
I know we have a motion open, but this raises other questions. And so when you accept that overpayment, there are 3 components that are on our bills.
Yes,
Usage, infrastructure, and service.
bless you.
Bless you.
Oh, bless you. Just in terms of accounting.
I would have to look at how it's done now. It used to be that it was always applied to the usage first. And so I just need to verify that it's still applied to the usage first. But there is an order that it's applied to on the system.
And when you reverse it, when you issue the check.
We would
back up
reverse
the
it
same
from
way.
the one that it's over applied to.
Great. Okay. With-
But the system, just so you know, the system has a response that it does, like, we have to give it a priority in the system. And we always give the priority, I believe, to the service itself, because that's the one that we're getting billed on in that way. We could change that. We could say that service ought to be first. That we could do whatever, but typically in the past, it's been the other way around. Because the service was the first bill, that was the first fee that we were charging. We've added the others and we just added them in the order that they were. I don't know if that
I
answers
think
all
that
your
makes
questions.
sense. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, do we need to discuss the developer bond release?
There's actually nothing. I'm not sure. That should have come off your agenda.
Okay,
There's
all right.
no new business or old business.
I have one question for old business. You had provided us with copies of the second meter process.
Yes,
And you've also provided us with an outline of what services are provided from an administrative and operations perspective for the authority. That's sort of a follow-up to a question whether we need to think about for next budget year.
yeah.
To potentially enhance the staff supporting the municipal authority. I don't know how we want to follow up on that. I have comments on the document, but it's just a draft, and I don't know if we want to send them back to.
Comments on which document?
The-
The policy or the agreement between the township and the.
Not the agreement. It was an outline of the services that are being done
Okay.
on our behalf.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that, my recommendation is that you let me work with Rich and Steve to tighten up the relationship between the authority and.
Oh,
and the township.
yeah, I'm less concerned about how the actual reimbursements take place and more concerned that now that we're out of this sort of massive project that's been a distraction, we're doing, preventive maintenance planning and other regular stuff. And I just kind of think that maybe we don't necessarily need Steve dedicating so much time to some of those things, and he could use an assist on that stuff. That was my original thought when I brought it up.
So if it's okay with the chair, I'll just say that in the process, what I thought I would do to come back with you is that I'm going to nail down a little bit more what I think that what you had was kind of a first blush at it. And so I want to go back through, take a little bit more of a look, and also look at it in light of the fact that the project is kind of coming to an end, because some things were more demanding because of the project.
And needed your involvement.
Well, it needed not only my involvement, but also required more staff time. Like, for example, just the letters going out last week, I had 2 days that pretty much 3 people in the office were all hands on deck trying to make sure that we got the letters out correctly, and did that. So there is some of that happens in the process, right? And so, but I don't want to be basing what our future looks like on those kind of events. And I want to look at what I think is going to be the whole piece. So what my thoughts were, come November, I would have a full kind of hopefully presentation for you. We would have had a chance to have a conversation with Rich and kind of say, what would it look like? What would the type of agreement look like? I do think that there's a benefit to the authority to have somebody who's not necessarily my level, but not necessarily a cashier, who is focused on the business. And I think it will benefit you as well as the township. That both groups would have a benefit from that.
Right.
Still not 100% sure whether it needs to be a full-time person or whether we can do that with a part-time person, and what that looks like. And that's what I need to confirm.
So if it's okay with the chair and our solicitor, I would suggest that if anybody has comments, they offer them directly to you.
That
on
would
the
be great.
document, and I'll just send my comments directly to you and nobody else. Anybody else can do that.
Yeah, because anything that would help us have a better document, that makes sense.
Great. That's it. That was my old business.
And I'm not even sure that next month is going to be the best time to be dealing with this, to be perfectly honest. Because we've got to finish up the 537 plan, and get everybody hooked up. We don't know what, is going to transpire between now and our next meeting. And obviously
My only thoughts for you were just so I could kind of throw out what I'm hoping to be able to give you at your next meeting is a rough estimate of what I think your budget's going to be.
Yeah.
We're working on that. And so I was hoping to be able to
the
do that.
overall budget.
The overall budget. And if I think if there's some dollar change because of this, I'd like to at least throw that out there so you have an idea.
Okay, that makes sense.
The position may be more still up in the air, but the dollars I'd like to have close.
Great. Okay. And no public here, yes.
Madam Chair, I wanted to just add something more of just an information piece to the authority. I did receive a phone call from a resident earlier or late this morning, early afternoon. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I did exchange some email correspondence that I forwarded on to Steve. It's in relation to a few years ago, there was a proposed dam breach at Earl's Lake. And the authority has an existing sanitary sewer line that runs just below where that dam was situated. We had the opportunity to review some plans and provide some comments on providing some additional protection to that existing sanitary sewer main, which was done during construction. The lower portion of what they did improvement wise, as far as the stream bed itself, has been eroding. The resident that called to notify me was a resident of Radnor Township. That resident also informed me that there is a Teams meeting next Tuesday with the DEP and the Green Country Village Homeowners Association, who was responsible to do the dam breach, since they controlled the operation and maintenance of that dam. I would recommend to the authority that myself and or Mike and or Steve attend that Teams meeting as well.
I'd like to recommend that it not be an or, but an and.
And
Yeah, I don't want to do that without someone with some
Sure.
engineering experience.
Yeah,
and I say that because DEP will have council president and the Green Country Village will have their council president as well.
yeah. I mean, I absolutely think that, someone, Dave, hopefully you, since
Sure.
as well as Mike, were you planning on attending?
I
as
think
well?
that probably for this one, we all need to be in attendance because there's multiple, I might be wearing multiple hats at that meeting to address some of that anyhow.
And I will get out and I'll put eyes on that situation before next Tuesday.
Perfect.
Okay.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, again, I see no members of the public here. We don't receive any public comment through you, right? Okay, thanks, Steve. And unless anybody wants to discuss items for the next agenda, I'll adjourn this meeting.
Great.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.